Detail, halt, left, face, post. Prepare. Detail, face, pose. Detail, about, face. Present, arms. Order, arms. Lift, face. Forward, march.
Welcome to the third year of Reflections on the River. I'm Iria Nishimura, Executive Director for Willamette Valley Hospice and Palliative Care. Thank you for joining us this evening. Willamette Valley Hospice and Palliative Care was started more than 40 years ago by a group of dedicated volunteers who saw the unmet needs of terminally ill patients and their families. We are the only community-based, not-for-profit hospice agency serving the mid-Willamette Valley. Community is important to us, and we are dedicated to providing services to everyone, regardless of their ability to pay. Daily life has changed quite a lot for our community. Isolation during the pandemic has made it harder for people to process grief and mourn loved ones. We offer bereavement support to anyone in our community who has faced the recent death of a loved one, whether or not they used our hospice services. Our current online grief support groups are open to you. Visit wvh.org for more information. Due to the global pandemic, this has been an unusual journey for hospice care. Despite the challenges we are facing on a daily basis, our staff has been amazing and inventive as they continue to serve our patients wearing personal protective equipment to protect ourselves, patients, caregivers, and the facility staff. Please take a minute with me and imagine thousands of luminarias glowing along the banks of the Willamette River, each light representing a neighbor, family member, or friend. Imagine coming together as a community to celebrate the lives of those who brought love, laughter, and light to our lives. Imagine participating in the reflection walk along the river and honoring veterans with family and friends. This evening, we'll share words of inspiration, hear music from our music therapists, and remember our loved ones, as well as all the Oregonians who have died due to COVID-19, with a special tribute on the Willamette Queen sternwheeler. As we begin tonight, please join me in listening to family experiences, followed by a few moments of reflection with Luminarias to honor loved ones. Thank you again for joining us for Reflections on the River. We hope this time is meaningful for you.
Hello, everyone. My name's Marty. 15 months ago, I lost my husband. We had been together for 30 years. We have 2 daughters in their 20s. My husband had a childhood cancer called Wilm's tumor from age 6 to age 16. He survived and was mostly asymptomatic for 40 years, but at the age of 56, the impact and the effects of the treatment that saved him started to really take a toll on his body. He had a rapid decline over the next 2 years and passed away at the age of 58 while being evaluated for a double lung and kidney transplant. Of course, it was very devastating to me and my daughters and to our family. 6 months later, my mom became significantly ill and her health started to decline, and she needed to move in with me for the last 6 months of her life. It was during this time that we became involved with Hospice, and they started to provide really critical services and support both for her and for the rest of our family. My mother passed away in May at the age of 89. I think COVID gives you this greater sense of isolation at a time when you already feel so alone in your grief. And it also steals from us some important rituals and ceremonies and supports that you would usually have when you lose somebody that you love. I've always been aligned with the values and the mission of Hospice. I don't think it's ever been more critical than during the pandemic. To have hospice providers coming to my home despite COVID meant there was never a moment when my mom or my family could not get the physical or emotional support that we needed. Hospice, unlike traditional medicine, that I could call 24/7. Someone always called me back. Someone would come to the house if I needed them to. They helped us understand what we were experiencing, to anticipate what was next, and ultimately to prepare for the end of my mom's life. And someone from Hospice came and sat with me after my mom's passed, which I will always remember and appreciate. I'm now involved in the grief services being provided through Hospice, and both the individual and the group, and that's giving me a little bit of sense of that community that I haven't had, albeit virtually. I don't usually give advice, but if I were to, I would say to try to find one moment of joy each day, whether that's noticing the flowers in the yard or a bird at the bird feeder or the sounds of kids' voices over the fence or in the neighborhood. Maybe it's virtual. My daughters put together a weekly cooking by Zoom night. The 3 of us didn't cook. My husband did all the cooking. So we rotate picking recipes, and we all cook together in our kitchen on the computer. And then we eat dinner together. And inevitably, one of the girls will have some song they want to play, and the girls will be dancing on their laptops. And I experience a moment of joy being a part of their moment of joy. And what I think for myself is every moment I'm experiencing joy is a moment I'm not experiencing despair or my sense of grief, and that maybe those moments can build. So what I would say is try to find, however hard, a moment of joy. And I hope you all take good care and be well.
I miss my husband every day. We were married for 63 years, and the last 20 or so, we traveled in the RV. And after he passed, it's like, I don't know who I am or what I'm to do now. And it's especially hard in the pandemic because I feel lonely and isolated. And it's very hard going through all the firsts without him or the family because of the pandemic. Like the anniversary, the birthdays, holidays. What are we doing the holidays coming up without him? I just don't know. So I realized I was in a dark place and I had to focus on something positive to help me climb out of it. So I started making a conscious effort to create moments of peace in which I wouldn't focus on the grief, but on how grateful I am that I had him in my life. And I could not have gone through Bob's dying process without Scott, the hospice nurse. He was there when we needed him, and particularly the last day of Bob's life, as we were all gathered in the room, Scott stayed with us and he explained what was happening. He made sure that Bob was comfortable with the proper dose of medication, and he gave us all comfort. He was amazing, and my children and grandchildren still talk about how much they appreciate Scott. And after Bob's passing, I was glad to know that hospice was still there for me. And I appreciate Nancy's counseling, and she helped me understand that my feelings were normal. And I attended a grief group, and that was a gift, being with people who were going through what I was experiencing and just understood and accepted. And overall, I just don't know how we would have done it with as much grace as we've managed to without hospice. The only thing I have to say is be kind to yourself. And that's all. You don't have expectations, just be good to yourself.
Thank you for sharing your hearts with us. Now we introduce the Luminarias. Each Luminaria represents a family member, friend, or co-worker. Luminarias are presented in alphabetical order for ease of identifying luminarias purchased by community members.
Peace above, peace below, peace all around and within you.
music this evening is provided by our music therapists from their first album titled Heartstrings Volume 1. Next, you will hear from our spiritual counselor, Lori Ensign, with some words of inspiration. Lori has worked with Willamette Valley Hospice for 16 years with a 30-year career working in hospice care, including spiritual care and bereavement support.
Life's most profound gift is to love and be loved deeply, and the loss of a loved one is one of life's most profound sorrows. It's a mystery that we can experience these at the same time and somehow manage to find joy in our hearts again after experiencing our grief. In these heartbreaking and historic times, we are experiencing both our individual grief for loved ones lost in our own family, as well as collective grief for the many deaths throughout the world and other losses that this pandemic has wrought. We hold one another in compassion and prayer in these unprecedented times. One of the most supportive ways of coping with grief is through our social connections, to be with others who are mourning, to talk and to share about our grief. We are being pushed at this time to find new ways of connecting with one another, to cope with grief and social isolation. We are creating new pathways and rituals for honoring our loved ones when everything around us is shifting. That is why it's so important to come together to remember our loved ones. When we remember, the power of the past comes into the present, whether it be the tragedies of death seen around the world or the joy of a loved family member evoked by a photograph. The past impacts our present and shapes our future when we remember. Our sorrow at the loss of a loved one may never entirely go away, but remembrance and our relationship lives on. We want to remember, not only for those who have died, but also, as importantly, for ourselves, to mend, to heal, to live, and to never forget. I want to offer a blessing by Jan Richardson, whose husband died suddenly, and she turned to her poetry and art as a way of coping through her grief. It's based on a quote by Henry David Thoreau: "There is no remedy for love but to love more." It's called Blessing for the Brokenhearted. Let us agree for now that we will not say the breaking makes us stronger, or that it is better to have this pain than to have done without this love. Let us promise we will not tell ourselves time will heal the wound when every day our waking opens it anew. Perhaps for now it can be enough to simply marvel at the mystery of how a heart so broken can go on beating, as if it were made for precisely this, as if it knows the only cure for love is more of it, as if it sees the heart's sole remedy for breaking is to love still, as if it trusts that its own persistent pulse is the rhythm of a blessing we cannot begin to fathom, but will save us nonetheless. We both grieve and celebrate our beloved who have died. May we know how they endure with us, holding our hearts and encompassing us with a fierce and stubborn love that persists across time and distance.
My mother died a little over a year ago. She was 82 and she had been fighting pancreatic cancer for about 3 years. In some ways, her death came as a relief. I had been her sole caretaker for most of that time, and we were both pretty tired. But also, it was just really hard and sad, and it marked the beginning of some pretty profound changes in my own life, stuff that I'm still working through. I'm glad that the first year is over with. In my experience with grief, the first year is always the hardest. I think I'm doing well in my day-to-day life. I think I present well to the world, but inside I still definitely feel kind of unmoored. The reality is that when we lose someone that we love, they leave behind a hole, and that hole is always there. Something is missing and it will always be gone. And you will keep grieving in small ways and large ways for the rest of your life. The way I think of it is that your grief is your last opportunity to be with your loved one, to honor and to remember them. I've thought of my mom a lot over the last few months. part of me is just so grateful that she is not alive through this. I would have been so terrified of her getting the coronavirus and dying alone in a hospital. And it would have limited her ability to be in the world even more than it already had been. And that would have been just awful. But I also miss her, and I wish I could talk to her about what's going on. Everything is so strange and different. I would have appreciated hearing her perspective and experience. I think it would have made my life feel a little bit more normal to have her here, because she and I had lived together for so long. And also, like a lot of people, I've spent a lot of my time at home, and I've gardened a lot. And my mom was an amazing gardener. And I always think about her when I'm outside. And I really wish that I could show her all the work that I've done. I have a great respect and appreciation for hospice. When my dad died in 2008 after a long illness, hospice was such a comfort. We had been navigating the medical system for so long, and that can be such a nightmare. So it was a relief to know that the trips to the emergency room were done, and that someone would come to our house in the middle of the night if necessary to help relieve his suffering. It felt similar when my mom was on hospice. After being her caregiver by myself for so long, it was such a relief to have other people who could help. And in both cases, it allowed me to focus less on being a caretaker and freed me to be more present with the person who was transitioning. And that is a great blessing. Being with somebody when they're dying is sacred work, and things can happen at those times that are not able to happen at other times. After my mom's death, I took advantage of the 4 counseling sessions offered by hospice. This was a great help to me. I had a lot to process, and being able to process that with a mental health professional who specialized in bereavement was really good for me. And my counselor continued to check in with me over the next year and continued to provide support and wisdom around my grieving process, which was really appreciated. And these check-ins kind of helped me mark my own progress in my own grief and to see how far I had come and how I was moving forward. We all grieve differently, and each death and the grief that surrounds it is unique. You may be surprised about what you want to do to remember and honor the person that you loved. It may be different than what you had imagined, or different than what you've done in the past when you grieved, and maybe it will even feel out of character to you. But I say yield to those strange urges. Embrace your unique path of grief. Honor it and its blessings and its strangeness. Take comfort in whatever weird ways you can find it. Be with and honor your loved one in the way that your heart most desires.
I feel I am making progress in the grief process. However, sometimes a song, a place, or a particular item will bring a flood of emotions. This is particularly true as I decided to move closer to my son in West Salem and have been going through 47 years of memories. I also still wear my wedding ring and my husband's on a necklace, giving me a feeling of connection. One of the major effects of the pandemic is a lack of physical in-person contact of support and services. Also, we have not been able to scatter Ken's ashes at the base of the Three Sisters, where he hiked with our 2 sons, as we had planned. Prior to the pandemic, the drop-in group was helpful, as I felt I could truly express my feelings of loss with those who were experiencing a similar sense of grief. I have appreciated Nancy's check-in calls since in-person contact was suspended. My major advice is to allow yourself to grieve. In early April, I began writing every night in a notebook. Some entries are very short. Others may be a page or 2 long. I'm very honest with myself about my feelings, often writing through tears. I found it to be a way to face a new day, a new beginning. I also have a very close friend with whom I can be totally honest without judgment. We talk almost every night.
Aunque no contigo. Mi corazón, mis abrazos, mis pensamientos están contigo. Mi niño especial, mi niño especial. Cuando estoy contigo, no quiero separarme de ti. Tu sonrisa es especial para mí, para mí. Mi niño especial, mi niño especial. Tu sonrisa es un regalo para mí, para mí. Tu sonrisa es un regalo para mí, para mí. Mi niño especial, mi niño especial. Tu sonrisa es un regalo para mí, para mí. Tu sonrisa es un regalo para mí, para mí. Mi niño especial, mi niño especial. Tu sonrisa es un regalo para mí, para mí. Tu sonrisa es un regalo para mí, para mí. Mi niño especial, mi niño especial, mi niño especial, mi niño especial.
At this time, please join me in a very special Luminaria tribute aboard the Willamette Queen Sternwheeler for those affected by COVID-19. Every Luminaria represents an Oregonian that died this year from COVID-19. We remember and honor them.
A river slightly fast flowing by. Lots of stones line the bottom. Lots of colors catch my eye. It's warm outside, like fishing afternoon. It's automatic timing, and I'll have a beauty on the end of my line soon. Peaceful, so peaceful. Enjoy it alone, let it all in. Sweetly, so serenely. generations passing, traditions handed down, fathers, sons, and daughters drawn to the music of the river sound. It's cool outside, fly fish in the rising moon. It's automatic timing, and I'll have another beauty in my creel real soon. Trust what you've said and keep going. Don't know how, but I do. Tired angel gets her wings. I am left with all her things. This is what it means to grow older. Did you hold her in that instant? One
I want to thank Willamette Valley Hospice Reflections on the River Task Force, chaired by Teresa Hart, for the numerous hours of work that made this very special virtual event possible. Thank you to our volunteers who helped arrange the Luminarias, and special thanks to Willamette Queen Stern Wheeler and Lewis Media Group for your partnership. We would like to recognize our sponsors who made virtual Reflections on the River possible. Thank you to title sponsors Columbia Trust Company and Columbia Bank. We honor veteran sponsor First Interstate Bank. Candlelight sponsors Bowman Funeral Home and Dallas Mortuary Tribute Center. Bellcrest and Howell, Edwards Dirksen. Supporting sponsors Willamette Queen Sternwheeler, Allied Video Productions, Lewis Media Group, and Capital Community Media. As we conclude, please join me in welcoming back veterans of foreign wars Marion Post 661 Color Guard for the retirement of the colors, accompanied by bugler Rick Breen. Good night and be well.
Detail. Halt. Left. Face. Present. Arms. Order. Arms. Detail. Post. Prepare. Detail. Face. Detail. Post. Detail. Face. Detail. Post. You face that way. Face. Forward. March.
How grateful we all are. We all live, we all die. That's his plan, that's his plan. We all come and say goodbye. Lord, you blessed me the day I got married to a good man, a better man than most. The kindness within to match the sun that streamed through the windows on my favorite day. He had everything I wanted, I had everything he needed. How grateful we all are. We all live, we all die. That's his plan, that's his plan. We all come, say goodbye. Thank you, Lord, for all my gifts, from a dining room waitress all the way to here. Forgive me, Lord, for all my sins, looking up through the tears, looking back through the years.
Hello, I'm Debbie Jensen, Vice President and Trust Team Lead with Columbia Trust Company here in Salem. We are honored to join you as a sponsor for Reflections on the River. Though we are unable to participate in this joyous event in person during these unusual times, Columbia Trust Company appreciates Willamette Valley Hospice for their creative way to bring us together to remember and honor loved ones who have passed away. Thank you, Willamette Valley Hospice and Palliative Care, for all you do to support our community and those who we care about most. Together, we can bring inspiration and healing to our community now and in the future.
Hi, I'm Dave Smith, Assistant Manager for First Interstate Bank. We're sorry we can't gather in person, but we applaud Willamette Valley Hospice and Palliative Care's innovative ways to bring celebration, remembrance, to honor those loved ones who have passed. Thank you, Willamette Valley Hospice and Palliative Cares, for all you're doing to support our community members in these unprecedented times. Together we bring hope and healing to our community. Thank you.
fast flowing by. Lots of stones line the bottom, lots of colors catch my eye. It's warm outside, like fishing afternoon. sing traditions handed down. Fathers, sons, and daughters drawn to the music of the river sound. It's cool outside, fly fish in the rising moon.